We got Mark online. Are you there, Mark? Can you hear us?
I am here. I might have to step out to take a call for a second, but I'll be back if I do.
All right, no problem. Okay, I think we've got us here for a quorum, so we will get started with this month's Power Board meeting for September. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming and joining. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. So did everybody get that? And are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda for our September 3rd Power Board meeting.
I'll second that.
So Mark did the second, Dick did the first. Mark, will you start us on a vote?
Hauser, aye?
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you. Next, item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a copy of those and have a chance to look through? And are there any questions or comments?
No questions here.
Okay, then I'm just looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Dick second, and Mark first. Dick, would you start us on a vote?
Saunders, aye.
Mark?
Hauser, aye?
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you, thank you. And item number 3 is enough. And it's, I think, and that's what the whole conference was, the fact that this is a very confusing time and we're at a crossroads and we need to start figuring some things out, or we're going to be facing some big difficulties. And you look at us right now. I mean, we're dealing with another week of when we should be having lower temperatures, which means power should be coming down, and we're going to be hitting hundreds, and those everybody's seeing their bills high, and we knew it was going to happen, and we kind of warned them, and no one wants to listen to that. And that's what's a little bit scary is we see all these experts that we heard warning us about these things, and a lot of the public just doesn't want to listen to it, and it gets a little scary at times. But no, I thought it was a great conference. I was a little disappointed that battery technology hasn't improved any much more, and there were some interesting projects. You and I talked a little bit about that, but those projects are just not feasible to be able to, for a group to jump into right now. So I hope that we'll continue. I love UAMPS. I love that UAMPS is at least out there looking forward thinking on some stuff and kind of heading us down those ways as we continue and saying, hey, everybody, this is what we can do. This is what we hope to do. This is what maybe we can do. And that thinking's kind of going out there. So that's kind of exciting to see that they are at least. And I would hope, it sounded like, we had somebody from Florida, and their area sounds like they're kind of in a very progressive area. Whereas last year we had somebody from California, and they were kind of like, we're going down this path, but we know it's not going to be enough.
It's not going to work.
So it kind of scares you that, okay, is half the country trying and looking forward, and the other half is going to be dragging down, and we're going to really create some issues, which those kind of issues just means prices are going to be high because
High
that's
or
what it does.
volatile, and you
Yep.
can't predict them, and
Well, and it was interesting when the gentleman from Florida was talking, is that almost exclusively their power generations come from gas. Because
they don't have any
they
choice.
have no solar, they have no wind. Well,
Have
they
no
do,
elevator.
they have a lot of
wind,
wind, but there's no way that the tourist industry is gonna allow them to put windmills off the coast of Florida, and that makes sense. But his talking on all the different issues that faced his particular market, the one thing that rang true about what he said that his customers look at is cost. Cost is the number one thing. And I think that's true of all of our areas. But if there's something that we can feel a little bit good about, at least we have multiple sources
Right.
for our power generation because of our physical location here. But it is interesting to see the different issues that geographically throughout. And I was impressed by the talk that they did on the cogeneration, where we, you know, like City of Hurricane's got all the way back to diesel.
Yep, they have a couple diesels.
Diesel generators, and the fact is that when you're a municipality that you're operating your own generators like that, you have to have talented employees that can maintain them, or you're going to have to hire out expertise to do that. And in the case of Hurricane, I think they had 3 different types of generation sources. And the other thing I found that is surprising about that, and I'd asked Rick about, is they actually have to pay the transmission line coverage or carry for our own power that we produce, except here.
Hurricane's
For now.
grandfathered too, but if we were to add a unit to our plant, we wouldn't be grandfathered into that. Doesn't make sense, but yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting. I enjoyed it and learned a little bit. And yeah, had some fun visiting with, missed you.
Yeah.
The one item that, along those that kind of, I think could be potentially the biggest impact to us on the near-term horizon is the organized markets and being forced down that path. In fact, it was funny, Rachel leaned over and says, I don't understand a lot of this. And I said, I don't either.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of changes coming, and I mean, it could have some opportunities, could be negative too, but I think the big boys are dictating what's going on, and that's kind of the scary part.
Yeah, my general impression of that, and once again, I don't even begin to understand all the nuances of what they were talking about, but it looked like options were going to be less, that there was going to be the third party overhead that's going to control these things, and might make your life easier because you won't have to make as many decisions. But on the other hand, whether or not it's
It's
going to be
another,
costly.
it's another hand in the cookie jar, and it's going to mean higher costs, though.
Well, in the end, they just hand you the bill,
it's just
say,
gonna-
this is it.
Which the scary part of that is they refer to it as CAISO, stands for California Integrated System Operator. So that's part of a concern too. So, well, good. I'm very glad you went. You got anything you want to add, Rachel?
No, I think Dick ended up answering a lot of it. I'm saying I will say it was very informative. It was something that if you haven't had a chance to go to it and then learn from it, I had a lot of questions I kept leaning over and asking Rick after. But I also liked the little app to where you can get on and see everybody's questions that were pretty similar to what you were being able to ask. So,
Okay, great. And we'll talk about a few things when I get to the UAMPS, more formal, as talking about some of the resources coming up. Well, good. Try to make this quick and as painless as possible, but one of the, growth remains strong, particularly commercial side of things. Residential keeps going. So I brought this picture.
Rick, let's just make sure we note that we are going to item number 4, the regular business.
Oh, sorry.
You're okay. We can say we noted it.
Okay, this is a picture of our new small bucket truck. Only took 23 months to get here. So I know you guys may not be as excited as the crew, but our previous one of this size is what, I want to say 18 years old, something like that. So
That would come in real handy for
You got
tree
the right
trimming.
logo, and it's all, the spelling's all correct. They didn't miss a letter.
So anyway, the crew was excited to have that. We had the training from Altech last week where they kind of came and showed all the bells and whistles and different things like that. And this is a stock unit. If we would have done custom stuff, it would have been another year to wait for, so.
Wow.
So Rick, does this lower our dependence on having to borrow one from Hurricane or St. George, or does it add a supply to them also to borrow?
Yeah, I mean, if, to be honest, if anybody wants to borrow one, it'll be our old one. But, but no, it gets another truck in the area. Yeah, so, you know, and particularly if you had a wind event or a storm or something like that, it's always good to have more equipment in the area. The old one is, we put a lot of money into it since I've been here, and we're just planning on keeping it and using it. And there are times that it'd be really nice to have two small trucks instead of having to go to the next size up, so it'll still get used. But.
And where is this vendor located?
It has 2,300 miles on it because it came from North Carolina.
Wow.
So that's how they ship them, basically, is they put a guy in it and he drives it and then Ubers back to the airport and flies wherever, so. But, yeah, it's a nice rig, and, actually it's the first, I guess the last major piece like this we got was the backyard digger about 5 years ago, so. And the crew takes really good care of our equipment, and so. Anyway, so they were in just getting it stocked up, ready to go, getting the tools on it, and so it will be ready to roll. I don't honestly know if they've even used it yet. Okay. So that may have been the maiden voyage. I know they were doing some stuff up in the habitat area and didn't want to get it dirty, so they took the old one.
That'll change.
Which I appreciated, so.
It's the new car thing. Oh, it still smells new.
Yep.
Take the old one.
And we've got seat covers on it and everything, so we can change those out. For our August peak, we were just barely under 54 megawatts, which was a 16% over our previous August high of 46. That was back in 2022, so August was hot, just like you said. On the generator side of things, we generated in August every day but 4, and typically about 6 hours a day, and somewhere longer. The hotter periods are more probably like 10-hour runs, 12-hour runs, so. Just based on pricing and load needs at the time.
Have we used up all of our gas that you pre-bought?
We still have gas through September, 4 hours a day. And
So when you go 6,
yeah,
a couple hours is at market level.
yes. Well, July and August, or excuse me, yeah, July and August, we had 6 hours of gas. In June and July, they'll share data at different points, and we're excited to have some of those features in the not too distant future. Okay, the screens are back up. So this is basically, the bathrooms are just up here off of this particular page, and then the equestrian parking is down here. If you go up there, you can't miss it. You'll see the big block wall of the boundaries. And this is gonna look very, very similar to the Parkway sub. The only difference is this incoming structure up there is on this bus this way, and we're coming in this side here. But the rest of it will be virtually identical to what's up there at our Parkway sub. And so this gives you just a little feel of what the drawings look like to construct one of these animals. All these little bubbles refer to a bus assembly, which will have all the details of the parts that go on each one of those. So every basically last little part is detailed out, and just different views of the structures. Then a cousin to that, we need to get power to the substation site. Oops. Oh, I just went the wrong direction, sorry. So this is Main Street and the Parkway, and the new Salente development's up in here, if you can see my cursor. And then down here is where the transmission line crosses I-15 right now. And so we'll extend the 69 line. It'll look just like the rest of the line that goes along Parkway. It'll extend back and then come up in the substation sites right here. And then it'll come back and we'll create a loop for that area, and that'll give us ability, if we have a line down or something, we can refeed things different routes. So we also have the 60% submittal on these two transmission segments. And just again, wanted to show you what the drawings look like. And so they go in and model what the conductor looks like at its hottest temperature, which means it sags the most. This is the ground line, and then they basically offset that ground line what the required ground clearance is. And then there always should be a gap between your lowest wire and that clearance line. And so that's all modeled there. And then in conjunction with that, so the bid package for the steel structures that will go for the transmission line, once I get through these and any changes, it should be ready to send out to bid, hopefully in the next month or so. So there's a lot of detail. Basically this table here, every single point on that structure has a mechanical load on it, you know, that shows the tensions. And then that's what gets sent to the transmission pole manufacturer. So they have to design the pole to withstand those loads. So. And then once we get their loads back, then the foundation gets designed. And then you got to put it all together in the field. So, last I've heard, I haven't done recently, it's about a year. Between year 15 months is what I was last told. So
Potentially 18 months to 2 years.
Probably with construction. And our crews, they're excited. They would like to do both projects as much as possible in-house. Obviously, we won't do the foundations. And I hope to be able to do that. The challenge there is just available man hours. Ability and stuff, I have no qualms with that at all. It's just, can we fit it in the times that we need?
So these are all our property? The power lines,
The poles, yeah.
poles? How about the lines themselves?
These will all be ours.
Do
Or
we-
maybe I'm not understanding.
Well, I'm just curious, you know, sometimes there's a third party that has the utility or has the power, and in this case, it's our property.
Yes.
We're buying all the equipment. We're
Yes.
owning it.
Yes, exactly. We're not Utah's not a wires and,
We're not gonna pay rent.
no.
That was where I was going. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, this.
I couldn't spit it out.
So, and it'll cost a decent chunk of change to put these in, so,
That's 69 kV.
yes.
And
And then the bottom one will be distribution at 12 kV.
do we use on that high voltage cable, is that aluminum or copper?
They call it ACSR, aluminum conductor steel reinforced, so the
Right.
inside has a steel core strand in it.
That's what I would have assumed for the weight, but.
Yeah, so for the strength, it's steel, the aluminum for the electrical properties.
And I never would have thought in the calculations, you'd have to figure out the temperature and how much it would droop.
You'd be surprised that, and these are modeled in this, and this gets distorted because the horizontal and vertical scales are different. But those conductors will move up and down probably 2 to 3 feet at the belly, whether it's in the winter or the summer. So you have to account for that. And so your tensions are highest in the winter when it's pulled up. So you have to design the strength around the cold temperature, but you do your clearances around the hot temperature. So,
Learn something new.
especially in the larger lines, you need to go to a little more detail than we do on distribution. You do the same thing, but it doesn't have to be quite as elaborate. So those are, I guess, unfortunately for me, they put them in my court. I've got to review everything, and then we can take the next step, which will be bidding the rest of the materials for the substation. We have a package for the steel, and then all the insulators and bus fittings in there, and then the transmission poles, and then we'll have insulators and wire, and we'll see how all that fits into the budget and timing. So there's lots of stuff going on. The crews pulled in some 750 cable that will eventually tie, thanks Greg, between the Coral Canyon up in Dick's neck of the woods, down off the hill and tie to Sienna Hills in the bottom. We're waiting on a couple switches, and then the crews can finish that tie, which will give us some flexibility. Because right now, like in Dick's area up there on the mesa, if one of the cables out by telegraph were to fail, that whole mesa is out. There's no backfeed right now. So that's why we're trying to get that tie in. And down and below, Sienna areas have similar radial areas. And so that's why you need loops. And so you can back stuff up and then deal with the problem while people are still in power. So you'll see the crews starting to do some more prep work along Telegraph. If you remember, we got all the poles changed, some of the conductor changed out, but then we paused the underbuild conductor changed out until once the loads come down. So it'll probably be October-ish when we start changing out that wire. But there's some prep work that they can do now without causing any problems. Excuse me. We've energized several subdivisions, the Ash, you'll notice there, that's south of Telegraph, and there's foundations going in. So all that's really load-wise right now is just their temporary construction stuff. But you'll see a bunch of big apartments going up in the next few months. The Solus and Solente also had phases get energized in the last month. So things keep going. We changed out some leaky transformers, and typically that's where we found that people use transformers as a retaining wall. And so they'll push dirt up against it. And then of course, what happens to metal when you stick it in dirt and it gets wet, and it rusts and creates a hole. So that's an ongoing challenge to educate people and to help people understand they can't do that. On the solar side of things, we only had 2 applications this in August, which was by far the lowest we've had in a long, long time. And one of those was battery addition. So there was really only 1 new solar in August. There's stuff waiting in the wings, but because I've seen applications come through without drawings. And so I know there's more coming, but that month was pretty slow. Pole attachment policy, we've had a couple meetings now with Lumen. We had one last Friday. Explained some of our concerns and needs, and they're supposed to be getting their team back with us on that. And TDS, we haven't had any response since we sent them the policy last month. So this is some graphs I've been showing you each of the last month. So our power cost for July, which is the last month we have our bill from, was just under 9 cents. So you see it came up here, but that 9 cents is cheaper than it's been since 2020 for July. So that was good. And what that translates into, the PCA went even a little bit more negative. So basically 1/3 of a cent instead of 1/4 that it was last month. So you can see the PCA still trends in that neighborhood. And I suspect we'll see a little bit more down, but it'll level off and stabilize. So that's really good. And so basically if our cost here is cheaper than the previous month, so if we come in under this 12 cents, the PCA will go down. If you came in over that, it would go up a little bit, is how the 12-month average works. So,
And once again, that's mainly due to natural gas being cheaper that's affecting what we pay.
that's a good chunk this last year, but we've also added quite a bit of solar in our portfolio this summer. And those are coming in between the upper 30s to upper 40s with those solar projects. And so again, that's below, as long as that comes in below, it'll help push that down a little bit.
And on the good side, from what I recall, on most of the solar projects, we have long-term contracts
Yeah, they're
with
25
tied-in prices, so.
Yeah, they're 25 years, so it's due to several things. I think some things are in our control directly, and others, it's just fortunate that the gas prices are down, so. So this just shows our demand. Again, this year's the purple line. You can see since, what was that, May, we were about the same as previous years, and then since we've been peak-wise. And I suspect September won't be quite as high as we had in 22. It'll come back down somewhere between these two, is what I'm expecting.
Though we're not starting out well.
Yeah, I think today we're about 42, 43, so that would put us in this range in here. This was that really weird week 2 years ago
Yeah,
in September
Well, it was
where we
super
got
hot.
110,
Yeah.
111. I don't think we'll get that bad, but
No.
it does show that we're staying warm for a while. And then again, back, you already mentioned this earlier, this is the average kilowatt hours usage per residential customer. And for this last period, it was a little over 1,500, which is as high as it's been since 2020. And again, not super surprising because of the temperatures, which these first two tables I showed last month. So this is June again. The high temperatures were above average. The low temperatures were way above average. July wasn't quite as bad, but still that trend. August, we read on the 20th, and so basically from here this way, that same trend was there for this last bill that's going out or just went out. But we do start seeing a little bit of relief, at least more normal temperatures the latter part of August. So, and I know that's consistent with what KSL says.
right.
He did his
And
little,
if I see it on
I have-
KSL, it's like
Yeah.
fact.
have so many days at this temperature and stuff.
It's just normal, but it's still, if you go back up to July, what was it, the average is sitting at 108, but August, the average is 112. About the same, 108.
Yeah. It's just, and so the line is the average and the bars are the actual day. So,
Yeah, we're more to the
Yeah, June and July were just virtually every day, other than just a couple exceptions here and there. So. As far as outages go, I think it was on the 17th, we had that fun little storm come through. If I remember right, it was the 17th, it was a Saturday. Or was it Sunday? But anyway, there was a lightning strike somewhere in the Main Street sub area, and trip 2 of the circuit's off. They patrolled the lines, couldn't find anything, closed them back in, and they've held. So it was a fairly close in lightning strike that caused a fairly high fault current, which immediately goes to lockout. We had another sub, one of the circuits in Staley did a trip and then closed back on its own and held in. So it's always interesting. I think it was Braden was on call, and I texted him, any problems yet?
Yeah, you just know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, so fortunately it wasn't too horrible. I mean, I'd say those 2 circuits were out for, I think it was 45 minutes or an hour, while they made sure there wasn't any additional problems. So, so jumping back over to UAMPS, I probably won't use this a whole lot. Again, we've talked a lot about UAMPS already, and our, Jake and I's continual project that doesn't seem like it'll ever go away is looking for that future resource mix and what we can get at the most economical price to try to keep the prices down as low as possible. In fact, while we're talking about that, I think I'll just jump ahead to the resource project. UAMPS should be getting this out, and I think they talked about that at the meetings, individual resource recommendations. I haven't seen ours yet, but they are working on that. I do have a thing from Jackie that basically says, how much of this wind project do you want to sign up for? How much of this geothermal? How much of this natural gas? And believe it or not, I don't have much detail other than they are at least in preliminary, very preliminary discussions with a company that's looking at actually constructing a nuclear plant. And so the route would be more of a PPA approach as opposed to an ownership like we had in the carbon-free project. So we'll keep you posted on where that goes. May or may not materialize. But again, at some point in time, we need a baseload resource. That we
Another
can
SMR project, though?
Yes, yes. That's I think what's going to be built next is going to be some form of SMR, and it's technology agnostic at this point. They're evaluating what that could look like, so that's obviously out in the future.
Way out.
But I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised that they had engaged with a company had approached, and we'll just see where that goes. Like I say, not much detail at this point, but very preliminary initial discussions there. And again, UAMPS is looking at wind, geothermal, natural gas, solar with battery, kind of all of the above. So part of our challenge is trying to figure out which one's going to stick and actually happen. So we'll sign up for probably a little bit of all of the above, and I think it'll be easier to have too much and sell it to somebody else than to try to find it if we undersubscribe. So that's what we're trying to balance. On the Central St. George project, last month I think I reported that we had a verbal from the Western Electric Coordinating Council, or WEC, that the area was going to be given an exemption for the BES for the 138 system south of the St. George sub. And we've now received the written notification of that. So that's really good to help the looping project move forward. And we have meetings next week on that. Not a ton to report on the other projects. The Paysons ran very well. Didn't have any trips in August. And I think it ran 24/7 the entire month. Vale project, when Kern River's compressing gas, it runs well, but they've had, it sounded like, a few issues on their side. So if they have to take their compressor down, there's no waste heat. And so it, at a minimum, affects the amount of output we get. Another notification we received, and we're still trying to figure out all the details, is we did get a written notification from the Department of Energy that we will be able to get a grant to do some line rebuilds. And we're targeting the Uri area, which is one of our older areas. Rachel's helping me try to navigate through what the reporting process, and UAMPS is trying to figure that out. So there's ourselves and 4 other UAMPS members that are part of a larger application. So I think we're the first ones to get notification that our part of it was approved. And that's about $143,000 that we'll get towards that project. So.
And what project was that?
It will be rebuilding the Uri area south of the Parks yard up there.
Oh, okay.
And there's a chapel up there. So kind of between the parks and that chapel. Yeah, yeah. And again, it's older rear lock construction. And we've been chipping away at a few things here and there, but this hopefully will give us some extra funds that we can accelerate that a little bit.
Cool.
So. Yeah, last month I was just looking here, our Red Mesa solar was about $52.50, and the steels were about $34. So. Talk about that one. That's most of it. Our wind projects, Horse Butte was about a 37% capacity factor, which means it was on 37% of the time, more or less. And the Pleasant Valley was only 15%, so there wasn't a lot of wind in Wyoming, apparently a little more in Idaho. As far as the CFPP wind down, close out, it's moving very slowly through the Department of Energy. And so UAMPS, I mean, pretty much everything's shut down other than one guy that's working with them to finish out those negotiations, settlements, whatever you want to call it. So hard to believe it's almost been a year since that happened. So again, thanks for being able to, or taking the time to go to the conference. Hopefully it was worth your time. I do appreciate everyone's time here. And
I thought it was worth it.
that's all I got. As far as looking down, I don't know that we probably won't be ready for the October meetings, maybe November, where we'll have a presentation potentially on the impact fees. I've got a call this Thursday with UFS to go over at least the draft of what they're seeing. And then once they work with staff and get that figured out, then we'll bring it to you and then eventually on to the council. So So it may be December, Merry Christmas, here's a higher impact fee. So, I mean, it's important to get it done, but there isn't a real hard, super fast. I'd forgot about November being election. So I think October will be, it's possible, but that might be cutting it pretty close.
We
By the
may
time
wanna
we go
wait
back
till
to-
December anyways to see what happens there, because
Yeah, and we'd probably do
elections.
like well, the elections, we don't have any this year as a city. So it wouldn't
No,
have.
but where we're affecting building and stuff, and that's
Oh,
gonna be,
okay, I see what you mean, I see what you mean. So that's probably the next bigger animal to tackle with the power board, will be the impact fee update, which ties into the capital facilities plan that we've already seen and you've approved, and that's been presented to the council, so that's just taking those numbers in that plan and putting it, what that the impact to the impact fee is. The changes to the impact fee to support that plan, so. Thank you, thank you.
okay, thanks, Rick. Any questions, comments?
And thanks, Mark.
Mark, you still with us?
I'm still with you.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you, Rick, and everybody over there at the shed and all their work that they're doing, so. I will say, it seems like last month or two, if there has been a power outage, the crews have kept it to minimums. I mean, I've heard some over in St. George City, they were out for 4, 5, 6 hours in some of their outages this summer. So,
Fortunately for us, we didn't have poles and stuff come down.
Right.
yeah,
There's a little bit of luck,
Yes.
but we'll take it.
And where that microburst happens to land.
yeah, but they're doing a great job for us and for the city, so. Okay,
Yes, you can force me to do it. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
okay, Mark second, Dick first. Mark, start us out on a vote.
Hauser, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. So we will adjourn and we will meet again next month on the 1st, huh? Okay, October 1st. We'll see each other then. Okay.